The cafeteria at Westboro High was always loud at noon. Trays clattered, chairs scraped across the floor, and conversations blended into a constant wave of noise. For most students, lunch was the only break in a long academic day. For 17-year-old Marcus Hill, however, it was usually the quietest part of his routine. Marcus preferred sitting near the windows, away from the crowds. He was not unpopular. He was simply careful. Years of being one of the few black students in a wealthy suburban school had taught him how to stay unnoticed and avoid unnecessary attention. That Tuesday began like any normal day. Marcus picked up a lunch tray and moved through the line. He chose pizza, a fruit cup, and a milk carton. When he reached the register, he tapped his student ID against the payment scanner. The machine gave a red beep. The cafeteria worker asked him to try again without even looking up. Marcus scanned the card a second time. Another red beep followed. He frowned and calmly said that his balance should be fine because money had been added the previous day. Before the worker could respond, the cafeteria manager, Mrs. Dalton, stepped forward. She was known for being strict and rarely questioned once she made a decision. She asked what the problem was, and the worker explained that the system showed insufficient balance. Marcus noticed students nearby beginning to look toward him. He explained again that he had added money and believed the machine was making a mistake. Mrs. Dalton folded her arms and told him to step aside until payment could be confirmed. Marcus tried to explain that he had already scanned his card and that the system might be malfunctioning. Her tone quickly became firmer. She said that recently students had been trying to take food without paying. The statement changed the atmosphere instantly. Conversations slowed and attention shifted toward Marcus. Phones quietly lifted as students sensed drama unfolding. Mrs. Dalton reached toward the tray and said that without payment he could not take the food. Marcus held onto the tray and politely asked her to check again. Then she raised her voice and announced that stealing would not be tolerated. The single word echoed across the cafeteria. Stealing. Whispers spread through the room. Some students questioned what had happened while others quietly laughed. Marcus felt his face grow hot as embarrassment replaced confusion. He insisted that he had not stolen anything. Mrs. Dalton called for the nearby security aide, Mr. Klein, and explained that a student had attempted to take food without paying. Marcus denied the accusation, but phones were already recording and opinions were already forming. Mr. Klein calmly asked Marcus to step into the hallway. Marcus repeated that he had done nothing wrong, but he followed anyway, standing in the hallway, separated from the cafeteria yet still visible through the doorway. Marcus felt smaller than he ever had before. The aide instructed him to call his parent. Within 20 minutes, Marcus' mother, Renee Hill, arrived at the school. She walked quickly, her expression calm but focused. Years of experience had taught her how fast situations could escalate. She asked what had happened. Mrs. Dalton confidently explained that Marcus attempted to take food without payment and that the system showed no transaction. Renee immediately asked her son if he had paid. Marcus confirmed that he tried, but the machine kept rejecting his card. Renee then asked the staff to check the system again. Mrs. Dalton insisted that the evidence was already clear. Students nearby pretended not to watch, though many continued recording on their phones. Renee noticed the cameras and quietly pointed out that her son had been accused publicly, without proper verification. Mrs. Dalton replied that rules had to be enforced to maintain order. Renee responded that mistakes were also possible. The principal soon arrived and suggested resolving the matter privately. But the humiliation had already spread through the cafeteria and beyond. That evening, short video clips began appearing online. The recordings showed only fragments of the incident without context. Captions claimed that a student had been caught stealing lunch. Messages flooded Marcus' phone. Some classmates defended him, while others mocked him. The emotional weight became overwhelming, and he stayed home the next day. Renee watched her son sit silently at the kitchen table, unable to eat breakfast. She felt certain that something about the situation was wrong. Determined to find the truth, she returned to the school and demanded access to the cafeteria footage. The administration hesitated and mentioned privacy policies, but Renee continued insisting until they agreed to review recordings internally. Several days passed without answers. Meanwhile, rumors continued spreading at school. Marcus felt constant attention whenever he returned to class. On Friday afternoon, someone knocked on their front door. It was Mr. Alvarez, the evening janitor at the school. He appeared nervous and explained that he believed they needed to see something important. From his bag, he removed a small flash drive. He explained that another camera existed near the cafeteria office, installed for maintenance purposes and not connected to the main system. Renee quickly connected the drive to a laptop. The footage showed a clear view of the payment scanner. Marcus appeared on screen holding his tray. He scanned his card once and received a red air signal. He scanned again with the same result. Then a brief message flashed on the cashier's screen indicating a system error before resetting itself. Moments later, another student successfully completed a payment. The machine had malfunctioned. The video continued. It showed Mrs. Dalton noticing the error message and pausing briefly before approaching Marcus. She had seen the glitch yet still accused him. Renee covered her mouth in shock while Marcus watched silently, hurt deeper than anger. The following Monday, Renee requested an emergency school board meeting. Parents, teachers, and students gathered after hearing that new evidence existed. During the meeting, the footage was played on a large screen. The room became completely silent as every detail unfolded. The error message appeared clearly. The hesitation was visible. The accusation followed. Gasps spread across the audience. Mrs. Dalton's expression changed as the truth became undeniable. After the video ended, the board acknowledged that the accusation had been incorrect. Renee calmly explained that the issue was not only about lunch but about assumptions made too quickly. Mrs. Dalton offered an apology, her voice unsteady. Marcus listened quietly, and then said that an apology could not erase humiliation. The statement filled the room with reflection. The board announced disciplinary action and new policies requiring verification before public accusations. Later that day, Marcus returned to the cafeteria. Conversations softened as students noticed him entering. He picked up a tray and walked to the register once more. When he scanned his card, the machine gave a green approval sound. A few students began clapping. Others joined in softly. Marcus returned to his usual seat by the window as sunlight fell across the table. For the first time since the incident, he felt seen as a person rather than a rumor. Across the room, Mr. Alvarez gave him a small nod. It was a quiet reminder that justice does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes from ordinary people who simply choose to do what is right. The applause in the cafeteria slowly faded, but the feeling stayed with Marcus long after lunch ended. For the first time in many days, students looked at him with understanding instead of suspicion. Even so, the experience had left a mark that did not disappear overnight. Humiliation does not vanish. The moment people learn the truth, it stays quietly in the mind and returns during moments of silence. That afternoon, Marcus walked through the hallway toward his locker. Conversations softened as he passed. Some students nodded politely. A few offered small apologies. He appreciated their kindness, but it also made him realize how quickly people had judged him before knowing the facts. He was not angry anymore, but he was more aware than ever of how easily assumptions could spread. In history class, his teacher asked him to stay for a moment after the bell rang. She spoke gently and told him that many teachers admired how calmly he handled the situation. Marcus thanked her, but inside he knew that staying calm had not been bravery. It had been something he learned over time. Reacting emotionally often made people listen less, and he had learned to protect himself by remaining quiet. Meanwhile, the school administration faced growing pressure from parents. Emails continued arriving every day asking how such a public accusation could happen without verification. The school board announced new procedures that required staff members to confirm technical errors before accusing any student of wrongdoing. Training sessions were scheduled to help staff understand how unconscious bias could influence decisions made too quickly. At home, Marcus and his mother talked more openly than before. One evening they sat together at the kitchen table. Renee watched her son carefully and asked how he truly felt now that everything had been cleared. Marcus thought for a moment before answering. He said that the hardest part was not being accused, but realizing how fast people believed it. He explained that during those moments he felt invisible as a person and visible only as a stereotype. Renee listened quietly and reminded him that speaking up had helped change more than just his own situation. It had forced the school to look at its actions and improve. A week later, the principal asked Marcus and his mother if they would participate in a school assembly focused on fairness and responsibility. Marcus felt nervous about standing in front of hundreds of students, but he also understood that avoiding the moment would allow others to control the story. After thinking carefully, he agreed. The auditorium filled quickly on the day of the assembly. Students whispered as Marcus walked onto the stage. The principal introduced him briefly and then stepped aside. Marcus stood at the microphone, feeling his heart beat faster. He had prepared notes, but after looking at the crowd, he decided to speak naturally. He explained that he never wanted attention because of something painful. He told the students that mistakes happen, but assumptions can cause damage that lasts longer than the mistake itself. He described how it felt when people watched without asking questions and how quickly rumors replaced truth. The room became completely silent as he continued speaking. Marcus said that what helped him most was not only the video proving his innocence but also the courage of one person who chose honesty over silence. He looked toward the back of the auditorium where Mr. Alvarez stood quietly. Students followed his gaze and began applauding. The applause grew stronger, recognizing the janitor whose decision had changed everything. Marcus finished by saying that fairness begins when people slow down and choose understanding instead of judgment. When he stepped away from the microphone, the audience stood and applauded. This time, the sound felt different. It was not curiosity or drama. It was respect. After the assembly, many students approached Marcus throughout the day. Some admitted they had shared the original cafeteria video online and now regretted it. Others thanked him for speaking honestly. Each conversation helped replace the painful memory with something more positive. Slowly, the atmosphere around him changed from sympathy to genuine connection. A few days later, Mrs. Dalton requested a private meeting with Marcus and his mother. She appeared quieter than before and admitted that she had replayed the incident many times in her mind. She explained that she should have checked the machine again instead of assuming the worst. Her apology sounded sincere, and although Marcus could not forget what happened, he accepted that people could learn from mistakes when they truly reflected on them. As weeks passed, daily school life returned to normal. Homework assignments, sports practices, and ordinary conversations replaced the tension that once filled the hallways. Yet something important had shifted within the school community. Teachers took extra moments to verify situations. Students became more careful about spreading rumors online. The incident had quietly changed how people reacted to conflict. One afternoon, Marcus returned to his usual seat near the cafeteria window. Sunlight fell across the table just as it had before everything happened. A younger student approached nervously and asked if he could sit there. Marcus agreed, and the student explained that watching the assembly speech made him feel more confident about standing up for himself in difficult situations. Marcus realized then that the experience had created a ripple effect far beyond one misunderstanding. What began as humiliation had turned into a lesson shared by an entire school. People were learning to pause, to question assumptions, and to treat each other with greater care. As he looked around the busy cafeteria, Marcus noticed laughter and normal conversations filling the space again. The same room that once felt overwhelming now felt familiar and safe. He understood that justice was not only about proving innocence, it was about creating change so that future moments would be handled differently. For the first time since the incident, Marcus no longer felt the need to stay invisible. He felt stronger, not because something unfair had happened, but because he had moved forward from it with dignity. The experience had shown him that truths sometimes arrive slowly, carried by ordinary people who choose honesty when it matters most. And as the lunch period continued around him, Marcus realized that his story was no longer defined by accusation or embarrassment. It was defined by growth, resilience, and the quiet power of standing firm until the truth finally speaks for itself.